Hi, my name is Brian Denning. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm the elected chair of the Amazon Workers Solidarity Campaign. The DSA has asked all members to be involved in organized labor, either to form a union or to join a union and to actively strengthen the union you're in. Most people don't know about labor organizing because organizing threatens capitalist power in a way that almost nothing else in this world does, and media organizations and business interests actively suppress labor education. When I talk about salting, one of the biggest targets for salting identified by the national DSA is Amazon. And I want to acknowledge the amazing victory for workers at one of Amazon's Staten Island warehouses, led by Amazon workers. There's a second Amazon labor union election at another Staten Island warehouse on April 25th, and workers across the world are energized and excited by this huge and historic win. Today, we're going to review two important roles that can be chosen and taken on in labor work that help workers radically change conditions in their own lives. Salting, choosing a job for the purpose of organizing coworkers together to build a union where none exists. And peppering, choosing a union job for the purpose of organizing union coworkers to build more democratic and militant unions that fight for real contract wins. I'm going to walk through salting, and then Claire is going to cover peppering, and then after there'll be time for discussion and questions and answers. I hope to cover 4 questions in my section, which is: how does social change occur historically? How is labor organizing critical to affecting societal change? Why Amazon, and especially, what is labor salting? Social change historically occurs when enough people leverage their collective power together to change conditions. Often these are during times of great upheaval relating to war, major economic transformations, or climate change. But the common denominator is organizing a critical mass together that has enough power to challenge the existing power structure and to win. Left and labor historians and scholars identify the critical role organized labor played in creating a powerful movement that wrested serious material concessions from the capital-owning class, and within a relatively short historic period. In the 1920s in the US, union density in the US hovered around 10%. By the mid-1930s, there had been a massive unionization wave, as well as successful general strikes that leveraged power to make real and serious demands regarding conditions for the working class. At that point, union density stood at 1/4 of all workers. Within 7 years, union density would reach 1/3 of all workers in the US. At that time, to be a wobbly, a member of the International Workers of the World, for example, meant you salted, as salting was seen as a primary mission. Socialists, communists, and anarchists were most commonly found salting in this time period to build class power, which they saw as the only viable means of effecting social change. Logistics is about the movement of goods, and the logistics sector controls this flow. Everyone heard about the Evergreen container ship blocking the Suez Canal last year as a very concrete example of what happens when logistics flows stop. In the US, services like logistics and construction are seeing continued robust growth, while other sectors decline. It's important to know why we're targeting Amazon. Beyond just the exploitative working conditions, Amazon is in the process of destroying all competition in the logistics sector with the goal of supplanting the US Postal Service and UPS, some of the largest unionized workforces in the United States. Every time Amazon opens a warehouse, logistics wages in the surrounding area go down. Amazon is explicitly focused on destroying all competition and redefining what work is to mean, from our past history of 40-hour work weeks to now megacycle 10 to 12-hour day and night shifts, with mandatory overtime and no control over your schedule. So Amazon is a massive trillion-dollar multinational threat aimed at the working class. So let's talk about salting. As I mentioned in the introduction, salting is a labor term used to describe a person who takes a job for the purpose of improving labor conditions for themselves and their coworkers. Salts train in labor organizing skills and work together covertly to build solidarity and connections in the workplace that are required for a successful labor campaign. The way salts do this is by being respected and skilled workers and committing to building real and lasting friendships with coworkers, and then when the time is right, recruiting your coworkers to together change conditions at your workplace. Jane McLevy, who has organized hundreds of thousands of nurses into unions, says to be an organizer, you have to just actually love the working class. Organizing requires that you meet your coworkers where they are and know in your heart that they ultimately want a good life for their family, to have dignity and respect, to not be exploited, to have a livable world with clean water and air and a future. McLevy says if you don't love workers and instead are coming from a place of ego or that you know better, workers will smell that on you immediately and you will fail. All this is to say, the friendships you develop as a salt are real and are not cynical. Bosses lie to workers and manipulate them constantly. This must not be your role. As a labor salt, you are not an outsider, you are an insider. You have solidarity first and then have organizing conversations where you ask coworkers to decide what they want to do. You aren't lecturing nor telling, you are listening and asking real questions. A SALT in our program has weekly check-ins and work plans with a SALT mentor, attends monthly or bi-monthly SALT meetings, and spends some time before, after, or during work to build coworker relationships. Labor skills training and practice is incorporated into all meetings. To be a SALT requires an ideological commitment to improving conditions for the working class, a willingness to build lasting real social relationships with coworkers, a sincere love for people, and a respected work ethic. To be a SALT requires an ability to maintain operational security, an initial commitment of 1 or 2 years in the campaign, and a demonstrated understanding of the challenges and rewards. You don't have to have labor organizing skills coming into the position. You will be fully trained in our salting program. Salting can definitely be challenging. Salting is not a protected activity, and you can be fired if the employer believes you to be salting. Working at an exploitative job also isn't easy. You will share those conditions of exploitation until you and your coworkers build the power to transform your lives. The reason salting is used in labor campaigns is that changing workplace conditions requires a minimum level of workers who know through experience that change is possible. The majority of people have never experienced workplace democracy, let alone agency as a worker. SALTs, by being on the inside and a part of the workplace, can influence workplace culture and build the unbreakable solidarity required to win a labor campaign. A number of labor organizations that use salting programs have high campaign wins that help workers access the power they always had to take on the boss and win. The reason I became a labor SALT and salted into Amazon in 2020 was because, like many of you here today, I yearned for a concrete action I could take to improve conditions and build working class power. I had supported workers organizing, but never organized my own workplace. The people I met in the labor movement who were the most serious and grounded and skilled were always SALTs, and I wanted to be like them. Salting allowed me to directly organize with my coworkers in a supported structure where I could learn and improve my organizing skills. Salting gave me a mission larger than myself and a better reason to hold a job than just a paycheck. And salting taught me how to build power with my siblings in the multiracial working class without illusions. I also chose to SALT because I'm a socialist, and I'm convinced our role as socialists is to do the hard things, the principled things, as we fight for our collective liberation. In the interview with Angelica Maldonado, the 27-year-old chair of the ALU Workers Committee, she was very clear what it took to organize with her coworkers. Angelica was at the warehouse on her days off, was there before and after her shifts, talking to workers on breaks, on lunch, doing home visits. This mother raising a child fought like hell to take on a $1 trillion multinational and won because she and many others methodically built unbreakable solidarity with their coworkers. Ask yourself, what do you think it will take to defeat capitalism? What are you willing to commit to expend to change this world? We have a short window of time to organize the working class into a cohesive force. And the second largest employer in the US with over 800,000 workers is Amazon, a company busy working to actively destroy unionized workforces in logistics like the Postal Service and UPS as it consumes a greater and greater market share. Salting is a direct engagement in the battle to liberate the multiracial working class, not by preaching from above or from outside, not by theorizing or postulating, but by being on the job and changing conditions by building unbreakable solidarity together. Salting and peppering are linked, ideally. SALTs will help form a union, win a contract vote, and then become peppers, strengthening the contract and keeping rank and file engagement high. Portland DSA has an upcoming socialist job fair on May 17th, where we'll be actively recruiting SALTs for our Amazon campaign, and a link will be dropped in the chat where you can sign up to find more information. Become part of a dedicated campaign today. I appreciate your attention. Now to pass off the presentation to Claire to cover peppering.
Hi, everyone. My name is Claire, and my pronouns are she, her, and I'm presenting today on peppering. So peppering is a labor term for a person who chooses a union job for the purpose of strengthening that union. Peppers turn up the heat and engage our rank and file coworkers into union life in order to win substantial gains for the multiracial working class. What peppers do is promote participation within the union and build solidarity among the workers. We do this by building relationships inside and outside of work in order to facilitate workplace democracy and militancy. This militancy is created by participating in concerted activities such as informational pickets, hand-billing, and strike preparation. All of this is done to grow engagement. And that means the difference between a toothless business union run by bureaucrats and a tough, growing union led by the rank and file. So the reason that peppers are used in labor campaigns is unions are only as strong as the solidarity of the membership. You and your coworkers are the union. This is the basis of rank and file power and how democratic unions function. An activated and engaged membership in a union bargains strong contracts, which grows and strengthens the workers' collective power. In some unions, workers may be partially or entirely disengaged from their union. Peppers reversed this trend by engaging in member education and organizing workplace actions to determine priorities for bargaining. Union reform caucuses are a common means of engagement by Peppers. An example is the Teamsters for a Democratic Union, fighting hard for progress inside the Teamsters. A success story of peppering is Chicago school teachers, where socialists were spread throughout the system and able to move the teachers' union from less than 30% participation to a strike-ready union that fought for and won improved conditions for teachers, students, and communities all across Chicago. Peppers help their coworkers access their own innate power to counter the isolation that capitalism creates. Things required of a person peppering includes first finding a job that has a union, somewhere like UPS, and then going through the orientation and gaining seniority. At UPS, you put in 70 working days and then you have full union protection. After this, you can start talking about your union rights and enforcing the union contract on the shop floor to protect yourself and your coworkers. Peppers also attend union meetings as well as rank and file caucus meetings to make our voices heard. The challenges of peppering include the socio-political consequences of activating a group of workers to collectively push back against established power dynamics. Both the employer and sometimes the union boss can be wary of peppers, since peppers have loyalty to the workers and no one else. Our employees have a vested interest in workers who do not question the system, as opposed to workers who understand their shared collective power and exercise it over the company's common profit-driven practices. Additionally, established top-down unions can be nervous to have an activated group of rank and filers and may act to protect existing power structures. Although union officials' jobs are to help workers, they can get bogged down by bureaucracy. Plus, they can be far removed from rank and file struggles and may not understand the true needs of the workers. Peppers try to strategically work with union officials to advocate for the needs of all workers, not just their local coworkers. The opportunity to strengthen a union through peppering can be very rewarding. Working somewhere with an established union typically means the job has a livable wage, decent benefits, and contract protection. This can lead to an improved quality of life for you and your coworkers. Another benefit in peppering is building long-lasting friendships with your coworkers to make the job better. And not only that, but peppering is rewarding since you get to be a part of something bigger than yourself. And as a worker, you will likely spend 1/3 of your life in a workplace. You have a real stake in fighting to make work a safe, protected, and livable space. So as discussed, salting and peppering are central strategies to growing the labor movement. The movement needs both new organizers to take on corporate giants, but it also needs fresh organizers to revitalize existing establishments. Socialists are encouraged to undertake these salting and peppering campaigns because labor power is a direct threat to capitalism, and militant labor power of a multiracial working class is the foundation of any liberatory mass movement. Portland DSA members, through our salting and peppering campaign, are working towards transforming this city by raising wages and improving living conditions for all. Portland is modeling what it is to have agency and power as a worker in solidarity, arms locked together. Our labor movement is carrying on the legacies of Cesar Chavez, who was fighting for the rights of farm workers, to Karen Lewis in Chicago, strengthening her union and winning real victories for education workers, to Oregon's own Sarah Nelson and the flight attendants, withholding labor and air travel to end the government shutdown. This is how you change material conditions. And you can be a part of this action by signing up to SALT or Pepper with your DSA siblings. So here's how to get involved. Portland DSA is having an upcoming social job fair on May 17th, where we will be actively recruiting SALT for our Amazon campaign. And a link should be dropped in the chat for that. There's also a logistic workers meetup with an open invite to anyone who wants to come talk about job opportunities next Saturday at the Lucky Lab. To get plugged in, contact the Labor Working Group and become a part of a dedicated campaign today. Thank you.